Folks, have you ever watched a Giants game where a missed field goal feels like the gut punch that knocks the wind out of the entire Big Blue faithful? Yeah, me too. It's the stuff of NFC East nightmares. But hold on to your helmets, New York, because today we've got a spark of hope lighting up the Meadowlands.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cowboys Nation, buckle up, because if there's one thing that gets my blood pumping more than a Dak Prescott moonshot to CD Lamb, it's watching America's team claw their way back from the brink. But here's the hook that's got me wide-eyed this morning. What if a simple pair of goggles could turn the Dallas Cowboys' leaky pass defense into a fortress? Yeah, you heard that right. Goggles. Not the kind you wore in high school swim class, but high-tech shades that might just save the season. Welcome to your daily dose of Stars and Stripes football frenzy. I'm your host, diving deep into the blue-starred saga that's got the NFC East buzzing like a hive of angry hornets. Let's start with the cold, hard truth that's been stinging Cowboys fans like a bad hangover after that epic 44-22 beatdown of the Commanders last weekend. Right now, Dallas sits dead last in the NFL against the pass, coughing up a whopping 260.3 yards per game through the air. That's not just a hiccup, that's a full-on crisis. Opponents are picking on that secondary like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet, and with the playoffs looming, every incompletion feels like a dagger to the heart. Remember, this is the team that calls AT&T Stadium home, the gleaming palace in Arlington where legends like Roger Staubach once orchestrated miracles. Staubach, the Navy hero who led the boys to 2 Super Bowls in the 70s, he didn't build this dynasty on paper-thin defenses. No, sir. But lately, it's been more sieve than shield. The culprits? Injuries, plain and simple, hitting the back end harder than a Micah Parsons blindside sack. Starting safety Malik Hooker, that towering 6 feet 4 inches interceptor who's supposed to be the last line of sanity, went down with a nasty toe injury early in the year. Hooker's no slouch. He's got 10 career picks, including that game sealer against the Eagles back in 21 that had Jerry Jones dancing in the owner's box. Losing him leaves a Grand Canyon-sized gap, and stepping into those size 14 cleats is Wanya Thomas, the undrafted gem from 2022 who's been fighting tooth and nail to prove he's more than a depth chart afterthought. Thomas burst onto the scene with that pick-six against the Giants as a rookie. Pure electricity, the kind that reminds you of Deion Sanders patrolling the meadow back in the 90s. But folks, the last few weeks, it's been rough. Migraines have been sidelining him, messing with his vision like a bad acid trip on the gridiron. He sat out that Commander's rout, watching from the sidelines as Trayvon Diggs and Darren Bland tried to hold the fort solo. But hold on to your cowboy hats, because here's where the story turns from tragedy to potential triumph. According to our insiders, and shout out to Nick Harris over on X for the scoop, Thomas hit the practice field this week rocking a pair of sleek goggles, courtesy of the Cowboys medical wizards. Harris nailed it. Cowboys' Wanya Thomas has been battling migraines that fogged up his vision the past couple weeks, echoes of that training camp tussle too. He was out there in practice, goggles on, as the docs chased down the root cause. Imagine that, a 24-year-old safety from the Florida Panhandle, grinding through headaches that'd floor most folks, now suiting up like a sci-fi quarterback. It's the kind of innovative grit that screams Dallas. Think Emmitt Smith bulldozing for 18,355 yards despite knees that should have quit years ago. If these goggles clear the cobwebs, Thomas could be back to his disruptive self, eyes locked on those sideline routes like a hawk on a field mouse. Now, let's peel back the layers and get tactical, because this ain't just about one player's noggin, it's about the whole defensive blueprint. Under Dan Quinn, who's been calling the shots since 2021 and turned this unit into a top 10 terror squad last year, the Cowboys thrive on bend but don't break coverage. But without Hooker and a hobbled Thomas, they've been reduced to man coverage roulette, where quarterbacks like Washington's Jaden Daniels last week carved him up for 268 yards before Dallas flipped the script with a late-game explosion. Check the tape. Thomas's first start against Green Bay? Solid. PFF gave him a 65.8 coverage grade, sniffing out throws like he owned the airspace. Then the Jets. Down to 55.7, those migraines creeping in, forcing him to guess rather than react. And Week 6 versus the Panthers? Oof, 54.4, barely scraping by, with Bryce Young threading needles he had no business seeing. Statistically, it's grim. Dallas allows a league-worst 8.2 yards per pass attempt, compared to the Eagles' stingy 6.1. That's the difference between a divisional crown and watching Philly waltz into the playoffs again, reliving that gut-wrenching 2022 loss where Jalen Hurts ran circles around him. But let's zoom out for some historical spice, because Cowboys fans, we live for the lore. This team's been America's team since Tom Landry coined it in the 70s, with 5 Lombardi trophies to prove it, more than anyone but the Pats and Steelers. Yet the secondary? It's been a roller coaster. Remember the doomsday defense of '77, with Cliff Harris and Charlie Waters locking down the backfield en route to Super Bowl XII? Or the heartbreak of '04, when that secondary collapsed like a house of cards against the Eagles in the playoffs? Fast forward to now, and it's echoes of those glory days we crave. Micah Parsons, the Penn State phenom who's already got 40.5 sacks in 3 seasons, that's more black ink than half the league's edge rushers, needs help behind him. Without a healthy Thomas, Parsons is dropping into coverage more than he'd like, diluting that pass rush menace. And don't get me started on the NFC East beef. The Giants, who the Broncos just torched for 33 points in a fourth-quarter miracle last week. That's the blueprint for Denver's high-octane attack led by Bo Nix, the rookie gunslinger who's slinging it like he's got ice in his veins. If Thomas goggles up and gels with Bland, that shutdown corner who snagged 4 picks already, this could be the tweak that vaults Dallas from also-ran to East overlords. Picture this, I cornered Thomas after practice. Okay, hypothetically, because who wouldn't? And he flashes that million-watt smile. Man, these headaches. They've been like fog lights in a thunderstorm, he'd say, adjusting those shades. But the Ducks and I, we're locked in. Goggles on, vision clear. Watch me ball out Sunday. Broncos ain't ready for this smoke. And head coach Mike McCarthy, the Super Bowl chaser from Green Bay who'd sell his soul for another ring? He'd lean in, that Wisconsin drawl kicking in. Juanua's a warrior. This isn't a gimmick. It's science meeting football. Get him right, and our D turns into a brick wall. Broncos, with their comeback kid vibes? Bring it, we've got unfinished business in the division. Even the fans chimed in, overheard a tailgater at the Star yelling, if Goggles fix this, Jerry's buying stock in Ray-Ban. Star in those, Thomas. Make him see stars. Looking ahead, the implications. Massive. So, Cowboys faithful, from the dusty plains of Texas to the rooftops of New York where those Giant fans still whine about '07, don't blink. Tune in Sunday as the Stars chase the sunset on another W. Follow us here for every snap, every scheme, every story that makes this league legendary. This is Dallas football, unpredictable, unbreakable, and always, always electric. Until next time, keep the faith, keep the blue flying high. How about them Cowboys?